The last time I saw her smile was the day before the accident. It was just a simple moment, one of those memories you don't realize will be your last. We were sitting in the small cafe down the street from our apartment, sipping coffee and laughing about something silly, probably about the way I spilled my drink earlier. She had that smile, the kind that lit up her whole face, like it was a secret she was sharing with me alone. I didn't know that day would be the last time. I didn't know I would be standing at her funeral just a few days later, trying to convince myself that the world still made sense. I couldn't believe it, couldn't let it go. I still can't. And that's why, a year later, I found myself standing in front of the mirror in the very same cafe, waiting for her to come in through the door. It was late, almost midnight. The cafe was closed, the lights dimmed low, but I could see her reflection in the window, her figure standing outside, waiting for me like she always did when she was running late. She had that smile. It was faint, but it was there. My heart started pounding. I knew it couldn't be her, but it felt like it. I rushed to the door, my hands shaking, and I pulled it open. The cool night air rushed in, but she wasn't there. Just the empty street, bathed in streetlight. The world around me felt like it was still in motion, but somehow I was stuck. Okay, stop, I told myself. You're losing it. But that smile, her smile was so real. And I hadn't seen it in so long. The next few days were a blur. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me, grief manifesting in strange ways. I'd lost her, and my heart had to make sense of it somehow, right? But then it happened again. I was home alone watching a movie when I heard the sound of soft laughter, her laughter filling the room. It was so real, so clear, it made the hairs on my neck stand up. I turned around, but there was no one there. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be her, but then I saw it. A photo frame I hadn't noticed before, sitting on the counter where I'd left it months ago, face down. I'd put it there to remind myself of happier times. I didn't remember turning it over, but now, there it was, her smile, bright and wide, just as I remembered it. But there was something wrong. Her eyes were closed in the photo, just like the day she passed. But in the reflection of the glass, she was looking at me. Her eyes were wide open. My heart stopped. I ran to the door, my pulse pounding in my ears, but I froze when I saw the reflection of myself standing in the hall. Except it wasn't just me anymore. Behind me, Pai stood there. The same smile, but now it felt different. Not warm and comforting, but cold, like it was too much for her to hold in. Her reflection was closer now. Her smile twisted. The room went cold. I turned around slowly, but there was nothing there. Please, I whispered to the empty space. Please, don't do this. Then the lights flickered, and I heard her voice. Soft, distant, like a memory trying to break through. You'll never see me smile again. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile. But this time, it wasn't the comforting smile I remembered. It was distorted, like the reflection in a cracked mirror. Faint, twisted, and wrong. I woke up in cold sweats, shaking, and even the thought of getting out of bed felt like a trap. I tried to convince myself it was just my mind playing tricks, but deep down, I knew it was something more, something I couldn't explain. The next morning, the house felt different. Too still. The silence was deafening, almost suffocating. I walked through the rooms, trying to shake the feeling that I was being watched. When I reached the kitchen, I froze. There, on the counter, was a new photo frame, one I didn't recognize. It was a picture of me just messending by the window. But there was something off about it. The photo was old, the kind that looked like it belonged in a forgotten box of family memories. But the window behind me was cracked open, and in the reflection of the glass, I saw her smile. It wasn't just in the photo, it was in the reflection of the glass. Her face was behind me, but when I turned around, she wasn't there. My heart dropped into my stomach. I ran to the window, but nothing outside had changed. The street was quiet, the usual sound of birds and cars distant. I slammed the window shut, trying to push away the unease crawling up my spine. I tried to go to work, to distract myself from the haunting smile, but everything seemed off. The world outside felt too loud, too bright. I couldn't focus. Every person I saw reminded me of her, and the more I tried to avoid it, the worse it got. Her face kept popping up in the strangest places, in the reflection of glass doors, in the faces of strangers, in the flicker of streetlights. I couldn't escape. By the time I got home, I was exhausted, but even that didn't help. I sat on the couch, staring at the television, not even registering what was on the screen. That's when it happened again. Her voice, it was soft, so soft I almost didn't hear it at first, but it came from behind me. And this time, it was clear. You can't forget me. I won't let you. I whipped around, but there was nothing there. Just the empty room, the shadows hanging in the corners, the faint hum of the air conditioner. But the words echoed in my head, repeating over and over, like a broken record. Then the phone rang. I don't know why, but something told me not to answer it. But it kept ringing, louder, more insistent. Finally, my hand moved on its own, picking up the receiver. There was a long silence on the other end, then a whisper, familiar yet foreign. I'm right here. You can't hide from me anymore. I dropped the phone, and it hit the floor with a loud thud. My hands were shaking. The room felt colder, the air thicker. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest until I felt the wall behind me. And that's when I saw it. The mirror on the far wall one I had passed 100 times was now fogged up. Slowly, I stepped closer. The fog cleared as I approached, and there, written on the glass in the same cold, messy handwriting, were the words, I'm still here. You'll never forget me. I pressed my hand against the glass, and for a split second, I thought I saw her reflection, standing just behind me, smiling that same twisted smile. But when I turned around, the room was empty. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her smile, twisted and stretched, too wide to be real. I could feel her presence in the room, just out of my sight, always waiting. I could hear her voice in the wind, the hum of the lights, the whisper in the walls. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't focus on anything. The whole house felt wrong. Every door, every window, every shadow seemed to hide something. And yet there was nothing I could point to. It was all in my mind. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something I couldn't stop. I thought maybe I'd leave, get out of town for a while, but the idea of being alone somewhere else terrified me even more. There was no escape. Wherever I went, she would be there, smiling, waiting. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the old photo of her that still sat on the counter, untouched. It was the last picture I'd taken of her before the accident. I had wanted to remember her happy, and now it felt like the photo was mocking me, like it was the only thing left of her, but it was all wrong. Suddenly, I heard it. A soft knock on the front door. I jumped, my heart pounding in my chest. The knock came again, more urgent this time. I walked to the door slowly, my hands trembling as I reached for the handle. I opened it. There was no one there, just a small envelope on the doorstep, addressed to me in messy handwriting. My name was written in bold, shaky letters, and beneath it there was something else. I'm waiting for you. I stared at the envelope for a long time, trying to understand what it meant. The handwriting was hers, there was no mistaking it, but she was gone. She had been gone for so long. I picked up the envelope and opened it slowly, my fingers trembling. Inside, there was a single photo. I recognized it immediately. It was the same pic, Ture I had seen so many times before, the one where she was smiling. But this time, there was something new. A shadow in the corner of the frame. I looked closer. The shadow was tall, thin, and dark. It was standing in the background, just out of focus, but it was unmistakable. It was her. And yet, it wasn't. My head spun. I could barely breathe. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. But nothing made sense. I ran to the living room and grabbed the photo from the counter. I held it up against the new one. They were identical, except for that shadow. And when I compared the two, I saw something else, the reflection in the glass of the photo frame. Her eyes were open. For the first time since her death, her eyes were staring back at me. I stumbled backward, dropping the photo. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking. I could feel the walls closing in on me. The air felt thick, suffocating. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. It was faint at first, like a breath, then louder, more insistent. I turned around. There, in the hallway, she stood. Her face was no longer a smile. It was a twisted version of the last time I saw her. Her eyes wide open, filled with something I couldn't understand. She was smiling, but it was a smile that didn't belong on a face. And she was closer than I realized. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. She stood in the doorway, her smile wide, her eyes unblinking, staring directly at me. My body felt frozen, as if the air itself had turned to ice. I wanted to scream, to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. Her presence filled the room, pushing against the walls, closing in on me. "Lena," I whispered, my voice trembling. Her name barely escaped my lips. She didn't respond. Her eyes didn't shift. She just stood there, smiling. But there was something wrong, something off about that smile. It wasn't the smile I remembered. It was hollow, empty. It was a mask, a twisted imitation of the woman I once loved. I felt tears begin to well up in my eyes. "Please, come back," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Please, I need you." For the briefest moment, the smile faltered. Her lips twitched, almost like she was going to speak. My heart skipped a beat. Maybe just maybe, this was the moment I could reach her. But then, without warning, her face twisted, and the smile returned wider, unnaturally so. The air around me grew colder. The walls seemed to bend, warping as if they were stretching. The faint sound of wind began to swirl around us, though no windows were open. It sounded like whispers, distant and scattered, growing louder. "You didn't save me," the voice came, but it wasn't her voice. It was darker. It was the voice of something else, something that had taken her place. I backed away, my hands shaking. No. I didn't know how. I couldn't. The room began to distort, flickering like a bad television signal. The images around me became fragmented. Blurry faces I didn't recognize flashed on the walls. Her face, Lena's face, appeared, but it wasn't her. The eyes were dark, hollow, and the smile twisted in ways it shouldn't. The room spun. My stomach churned. I felt myself losing control. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," I muttered to the floor. "Una, please too lift my head." "You didn't listen," the voice whispered again, now coming from all directions. "Now, you'll never leave." I didn't understand. What did it mean? Was I already dead? Was this my punishment? The floor cracked beneath me. I stumbled backward, falling to the ground. The shadows around me stretched unnaturally, reaching out like claws, pulling me closer. And then I saw it. On the floor, etched into the wood beneath me, was a single word. Stay. It wasn't written in ink. It was burned into the wood, as if it had always been there, waiting for me to notice. I felt the words sear into my mind like a brand. A cold breath swept past me, and I turned to see her, the figure of Lena, her twisted smile still stretched across her face. But she was no longer the woman I loved. She was something else, something empty. She stepped forward, and the floor seemed to swallow her, pulling her down, as if the house itself was alive and hungry. Her body seemed to melt into the floor, and for a brief second I could hear her cry out, but it was a sound that wasn't human. I reached out in a desperate attempt to pull her back, but the air was thick and suffocating. I felt myself being pulled in. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening now. The room spun faster, and I could feel the cold creeping into my bones. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the world went quiet. I was still on the floor. The room was perfectly still, as if nothing had ever happened. The fog was gone. The walls were whole. The photo on the counter was back, unchanged. And in the reflection of the glass, I saw myself, but something was wrong. I was smiling,